Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
We did it, man.
We should have practiced that more.
Right.
I feel like the millennial in me wants to be like, yo.
Oh, actually, I like that better.
Okay. What's up?
So, welcome to the Dodge and Burn podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did we come up with that name?
My wife came up with that name.
Hey, shout out to you, Magda. Dodging
and burning is an old photography term for making things light
Hey.
and dark.
Yeah. I like. I mean,
It
I
works.
like it. It does work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the Dodge and Burn podcast, this is going to be a free-form podcast. So we're gonna kind of talk about photography, fashion, drinks,
I
life.
think the idea was like, let's just make a podcast and talk about stuff we like.
Yeah. Why not?
But we are wedding professionals
exactly.
and we are photographers, so it's gonna be a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, this. I don't know if you've ever attempted to start like just a YouTube channel.
I have not.
I have tried quite a few times, and it's
hard.
so much work. So everyone who does YouTube for a living, shout out to you because that's so much work.
So we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to have some guests. We're going to have a lot of like interactive things that hopefully you guys enjoy. And with that being said, Simon.
Yes.
Kind of tell me about your journey, bro. How did you get into photography? What's your shtick, I guess?
Shtick.
There we go. That's the word. Stick.
So I actually started photography when I was super, super young. I think I was like 11 at day camp, and they had like a darkroom class.
Oh.
I was so young at that point. I don't really remember if I was like into photography before that, and then that sort of solidified it or what. Yeah. But I remember taking photos, and obviously this is dating me, but that was before like the digital revolution. So I was used to taking pictures, with a disposable or like a point and shoot, and then you give it to CVS, and then, whenever you remember to pick it up, you see the images. But there was something cool about taking the picture and then kind of being able to see what you did right away. There was just like a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah. Wait, so you had this moment at 11?
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember seeing the contact sheets. Oh my God. And being like, oh wow, this is awesome.
Okay.
So from that point on, I was sort of like the guy with the camera. I always just had one with me. My grandfather was really into photography. This is actually his Nikon F2 now that I'm remembering it.
Nice.
But so, I just did a ton of stuff with that. And it was always like the hobby I had in addition to whatever else I was doing with my life.
Nice.
And it never really dawned on me to make it a career at all. I did have the opportunity 2 years to go out to LA and work for TV Guide magazine, intern for TV Guide magazine.
Nice.
My Aunt Donna, shout out Aunt Donna, was I believe she was the photo director for TV Guide magazine. She hooked it up, nepotism at its finest. And I got to work on set for it's probably like a month and a half, I think. And it was 7 days a week, and it was for one issue called the Fall Preview, which is when all of the casts from any new shows that are coming out or any like big shows that have gotten renewed come out, and we just did like a massive photo shoot. So basically it would be like one day would be set building and lighting. So
wait, how old were you started at 11, and then how old were you at this point?
Man, I guess my first year was probably 2005, 2006. So I was in college.
Nice.
When this happened. But up until that point, photo was just like a hobby. I didn't really, this is pre-YouTube and being able to teach yourself that well.
Yeah.
So this was the first opportunity I went and like learned stuff.
The skills
just from being around. Yeah. And,
nice.
In retrospect, even at that point, I didn't know it was something I might go into for a living. So looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I had paid more attention. Because at that point, for me, I was a production assistant.
Yeah.
And my job was, we'd get there one day, it would be set building and lighting.
Okay.
And then the following day, the talent would come in.
Nice.
And it was generally, a lot of the people coming in were, new actors to the scene, that kind of stuff.
Were you in college at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were in college, and then you decided that I also want to pursue a hobby on the side.
I always sort of been doing it, because like my big thing was drumming at that point.
Okay.
I drummed professionally. I was in like an event. It wasn't an event band. Yeah, it was top 40 covers, and we did bars, clubs, that kind of stuff. And that's what I was doing before I did the whole wedding photography thing. But In college, I sort of just, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't think drumming was an option either, but that turned out to be a good thing. But so I went out and did these 2 internships with the sort of assumption like it'll be cool to learn stuff, but like honestly, it'll just be fun to be around like celebrities and stuff.
So you had no idea that, photography could be something that you eventually do full time.
100%. Definitely, it reinvigorated my passion for it after doing that.
Nice.
And I learned enough that I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this a little more seriously when I get home. So I got home, I bought, best piece of advice I got was from one of the photographers there. I said, I want to buy, because up until that point I hadn't had like a real camera.
Okay.
I was like, what do I buy? And he goes, take your camera budget, like however much money you want to spend, 3/4 of that spend on the lens.
Oh, absolutely.
And the rest get the body.
Absolutely.
And he showed me what lens to buy. It was like the original Canon 24-70. He's like, this will get you started and you'll have it forever. And I honestly, I had that lens until we switched over to mirrorless like 4 or 5 years ago, or 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it was the perfect.
If it's a
I
good
had that
lens,
forever.
you gotta keep on. Yeah.
But so I did that, and then as soon as I got back to school, I was like, all right, who wants to model? Like, we're gonna test some stuff.
Yeah.
And I found those photos recently, and they are
atrocious.
yes, because I didn't have strobes or lights or anything. I just had I went to Home Depot and got some stuff and made my own like Kino flows out of like shop lights. But it was like that was again per YouTube. That was like we're just gonna learn. And I remember I shot a bunch of stuff and I was like, oh, this is cool. Controlled lighting. I had never done it before. So the following year when I went back to TV Guide, I brought a couple of the things I had shot and like showed like the art director and all that kind of stuff. And they were like super helpful about and looking at those photos, they should have just said these are trash. But
and you bring up a good point. I feel like if anyone that's watching this that's in college or even considering going to college and they're not sure what kind of major to major in, I think personally you should not major in photography or any type of like art
I mean it's sort of I feel that the people that I know that were photography majors. Yeah. Now granted, I was an anthropology major. Never did anything with that degree. It feels almost like you limit yourself.
Right.
When you are a photography major, it's like even if that's what you want to do, that's awesome, but I would suggest, like if I could do undergrad again, I would 100% either go for business or marketing.
Absolutely. Pick a different degree, but then if you want like to pursue a passion in photography or career, you can still do that on the side like you just did. You networked with people while you were in college. You're like, okay, I want to kind of pursue my passion, but still go and get my education and do anthropology, which is something that clearly interests you at the time.
Yeah, so that was just sort of my beginnings into like being serious about photography. But even then, I was sort of like, I don't think this is ever really going to work out, as far as like a full-time job goes.
So at what point did you realize, okay, you know what? This is serious.
Probably about a month before I quit the band to be a full-time photographer.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Well, it was sort of, obviously we are both in the wedding industry and I do a lot of different types of photography now, but weddings are my bread and butter. It's and not just because I think that we're good at them, but like I really enjoy shooting weddings. I think it's fun. It's challenging. It gives me all of the things I like about being creative. Yeah. But we had like Magda and I had no intention of ever, number one, shooting weddings or doing it as a full-time business, which is insane to me. Yeah. I shot my first wedding. It was actually a really good friend. Both the bride and groom were both good friends of mine from high school. And they had me come out and they were getting married at the Venetian Club. It was super low-key. And there was no preconceived notions about what the photos were going to be like. Okay. They were just like, yeah, come do whatever you want. And I think I charged them like, hey, give me like a couple $100 in the open bar and we'll be good. Yeah. That's kind of what we did. Had a great time doing it. And then another I think it was one of Jackie's bridesmaids. It was another friend of mine that were like, we had such a good time with you. Can you do our wedding in a couple months or
That's how
the
it
next
goes.
year? And it just kind of snowballed from there. And it wasn't until I think we made a conscious decision after we had like 2 or 3 weddings for the next year booked. I don't even remember if we had a website yet. It's very much a blur because this was 9 years ago at this point. But I think we made sort of a conscious decision like, oh, this could totally be a fun side hustle.
This could be a thing.
And it was never to like make money. It was like, this is a fun thing to do for Magda and I to do together. We both liked it. We worked really well together. And, you know, at that point we weren't charging a lot of money at all, but it was enough that if we did 3 or 4 weddings, it's like, oh, let's go on a cool trip or something.
And I love that you said, you know, you just did it. And I think that's a good point for a lot of new photographers that are out there. If you're scared or contemplating like shooting weddings or wanting to get into this type of photography, you just have to do it. Like, you just literally, you ask a friend or you reach out to other photographers and be like, hey, can I come shoot with you for free? I just want to learn. It's
funny you should say that.
Yeah.
Magda and I just taught a workshop at Unique Photo in Philadelphia last weekend called Breaking into the Wedding Industry. And it was all of those things and pretty much everything you just said.
Exactly.
And we will be teaching it again. So when we figure out when that's going to be, we'll throw it up on socials or something. But just reach out to your photographer, reach out to your local photographer, reach out to someone you admire, someone you like, you know, you think their work is amazing, and that's how you get into it. And you know, I think the other thing that was unique about how I got into it was that I started without any sort of blueprint of what this is supposed to be.
Exactly.
And just shot what I liked, which was definitely not necessarily at that point, at that time, the style. We sort of gotten lucky because, you know, the way Magda and I shoot weddings now is like, you know, we have the fine art portraiture side of it, but we also have the very much documentary, very close, almost like street photography style that we do, which is how we've kind of always done it. And it was definitely not in fashion, you know, when we first started, you know, because photography trends come and go. I think sort of my big thing with weddings, because they're not just shooting for yourself, is that I want the photos to be timeless, which is it's a term that we throw around all the time, but I don't want to look back. I want a couple to look back on their photos in 20 years and go, "Ooh, definitely know what year I got married in." You know, you think 80s wedding album, you have a pretty good idea of what that looks like, right? I think that Magda and I have always sort of done this our own way, and I think that has sort of been the reason we have had the success we have and the longevity we have. 9 years. I mean, that's not insanely long, but it's way longer than I ever thought I'd be doing this.
So actually, Simon, I have a question for you. Don't think too much about it.
Okay.
So if you could go back, because now you've been in business for about 9 years, if you can go back and redo something to make your business better today, what would it be?
That's a great question. And someone asked this exact question at our workshop.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think I would change anything.
Really?
Yeah. And I know that sounds crazy, and it's not trying to be like full of myself, but like, I really like the way our business has developed and how we do business now. And I think our choices that we made early on in our business are the reason we get such good clients now.
Nice.
And we work with planners who know who our people are. Exactly. And they send us, they're like, whenever I get an email from the few planners we work with a lot, it's always like, I'm sending you guys this way because you will love them and they will love you.
Yeah.
Not anything else other than that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's been a single time where we've had one of those conversations that it hasn't panned out into a really fun wedding that we get to shoot.
Nice. And plus, I mean, it's a benefit to which, you know, I think this is a whole topic in itself, but you know, it's a benefit to have the pleasure and the accessibility to work with your wife, who already knows you, who already knows what style you like. So when you guys work together, you guys just feed off each other seamlessly.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I think in future episodes of this podcast, we're definitely going to go into more specifics about our styles, how we do business and stuff. But that's sort of my journey. You know, it happened very much organically and very much not on purpose.
Exactly.
And I don't think I would change much about how it happened.
Oof. Okay.
But what about you? Where did photography come into your life?
Ooh. Okay. So my journey is a little bit different from Simon's, but not too much. I would say I didn't start at 11 years old.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying I was good at 11 years old. I just said I knew what a shutter speed was at 11 years old.
I had no idea. I was literally outside riding my bike, playing baseball, hanging out with friends. So, yeah, I had no idea at a young age that I would ever be in this position where I'm at now. I would say my journey started in like 2017. So that was probably the first time I truly realized I liked photography.
Nice.
So my whole life I've been a creative person. I've done everything from being a barber in college. Shout out to you, Josh. You know, I may have messed his hair up a few times, but he let me practice on his hair. He was one of my college roommates. But yeah, so I was a barber in college. I used to DJ a lot of parties in college. I like to consider myself a bartender. I used to play baseball. I used to just do a bunch of different random things that I always had like a niche for. And I love fashion. I love creativity. And I picked up a camera in 2017. It was a Sony. What are those Sonys? Oh no, I'm sorry. Canon Rebels. Canon
Rebels. I feel like
Yes.
that's so many people's first. Camera.
Absolutely, a
It was
Canon
definitely
Rebel.
mine. Yeah, my first but mine was a Rebel G film camera. So,
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm old.
So yeah, I picked up a Rebel, and honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I would just bring it with me to like family functions.
Yeah.
I would be that photographer. You know what I mean? At a family function, and everyone's coming up to you and be like, "Yo, take my photo."
I was that guy too.
Right. And then in 2018 is when I really was like, you know what? I kind of want to start shooting subjects. So I reached out literally on Instagram to just random models in my area. So I would go on Instagram, I would type in like Philadelphia models and see who I thought had good style, who had good posture, and reach out to them and be like, hey, you know, in exchange for these photos, can you model for me?
Right.
And
TFP, we like to call it.
TFP.
Time for print.
Right. And before you know it, I was like, okay, this work is actually good, because I started posting it on Instagram. People were like, wow, like you're actually a good photographer. I'm like, oh, maybe I am.
Right.
Right. And then I saw a few photographers that would pop up on my Explore feed. And one of them, which she knows who she is to this day, I love her so much, Haley Richter. She was one of the first people.
Haley.
Yeah, shout out to Haley. She was one of the first people that like came across my Explore feed. And I reached out to her and I was like, hey, you know, I'm a photographer and I'm trying to see if I like weddings. And I really love the way you shoot brides. And she was like, yeah, just come second shoot with me. She gave me a shot. And then
Wow, she gave you a second shooting shot right off the bat. That's one thing that we went into in this workshop. It's like, it's hard to get someone to invest their time in you and allow you to be a second shooter, because second shooter, for those who don't know, is basically you have most companies work. There's a lead primary shooter, which is taking like, I don't want to say the important stuff, but like we call them the hero images usually, which are, I'll use my little analogy. It like a lead photographer is like an author,
right,
and hero images are the plot points of the day. So, you know, if you're reading a story, you have, you know, girl comes of age,
right,
princess, she becomes a princess, captured by the dragon, the knight appears. I don't know.
What are we talking about?
I woke up in the middle of the night and Lord of the Rings was on TV, so I'm like, yeah. But like those are sort of like the bullet points. So
Sure.
bride gets in her dress, that's a hero shot. You know, first kiss, that's a hero shot. Right, and a second shooter is like, I would put them in charge. The filler, yeah,
Right, exactly.
which is sort of like the in-between moments, all the stuff that a primary shooter or a lead shooter doesn't have time to get. And
Exactly.
they have to really trust you.
Now, granted,
Yeah.
I wasn't the second shooter. I was a third shooter.
The truth comes out. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. That was, and that, but still, like,
I mean,
the point I like to make is that if you don't know how a wedding day works, you know, as any sort of buddy that's helping out, whether it be an assistant or whatever, you're more of a liability than you are, you know, anything else.
well, that's why it's good to third shoot.
That's
right?
what I'm saying. So like, I'm giving credit to Haley for being like, yeah, come and do this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she gave me a shot, and you know, I'll put it this way: she gave me a shot, but there were other people that also gave me a shot along with her. But I truly enjoyed working with Haley a lot.
what kind of not to change the subject, because this was part of our workshop. What kind of portfolio did you have to show when like she hired you to
Sure.
be a extra shooter. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I showed a lot of like how I would shoot models. I showed a few of the weddings that I had worked with another photographer on.
So you had like a couple weddings.
Yeah, like it was like two or three.
But would you say you had enough in you there for someone to be able to see potential?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. Because I mean, that brings up a good point, right? Because if you see, like you said, the potential in someone and their character is amazing.
Yeah.
To me, I'm gonna, no matter what, like just come work, come shoot with me.
Yeah.
Come have a good time. Learn from what I'm doing. Learn from maybe what the second shooter is doing. But your energy, your vibe is just gonna bring so much positivity to the day.
Yeah, and I think that's, another point is, you went into it a similar way that Magda and I did, which is you were just being yourself all the time. You weren't changing how you shoot or changing how you act
Exactly.
to fit some mold so you can get work. And I think, one of the first thing I said in our workshop, not to keep coming back to this, but it sort of has a lot to do with us getting into the wedding industry, was, all right, because I watched this thing about like how to start a talk and how to bring people in. It's always a question, right?
Yeah.
So I want everyone to close their eyes, and I want you to think about the number one reason that you want to get into the wedding industry.
Yeah.
Everybody got it? If that number one thing is I want to make money, you're going to have a bad time.
Right. Right.
I think that, yes, the wedding industry, especially with photo, is lucrative right now. But if you don't like what you're doing, and
it's not gonna be fun.
It's not. I don't
enjoy it.
People like to compare it like, oh, but if you had an office job, it would be like this. I'm like, yeah, but like a 9-to-5 office job, if you aren't super happy with it, you can still do it effectively. Whereas I feel like with photography and capturing someone's day, if you are not enjoying yourself, you're not going to get the images that you want or that they want.
Yeah, and that brings me up to a good point because, even though I was really putting a lot of time and effort into photography, I actually had a full-time job. And a lot of people don't know this, but I used to work at the University of Pennsylvania in Philly. I worked in multiple departments. The most recent was the gene therapy program. So I was working as a regulatory quality scientist, but I was also doing photography on the side. I to say this was, even if you're an aspiring photographer, I would say Simon would agree with me that don't just throw all your eggs in one basket. Like, continue to work full time and pursue a passion in photography. And if you feel like your passion is growing to a point where it's like, oh, I can actually do this full time. I think I can actually make money doing this. I can feel happy and grow a business. Then you realize, okay, you know what? Maybe it's time to put in my 1-year notice and then quit my job at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with the fact that, it's sort of twofold here. It's that
Yeah.
if all your eggs are in that basket, the chances of you ending up taking jobs that, I don't want to say they're not enjoyable, but like you may end up taking like, photo gigs that you hate because you need to make income.
Exactly.
And that is like step one to burnout, and step two to wait, maybe I hate this.
Oh, I agree. 100%.
So, yeah, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
But continue about your journey. I keep interrupting you.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
So, so basically in 2022, I decided to, in 2022, end of 2022, I decided to quit my job full time and pursue my passion of photography. And prior to that, I was working 2 jobs essentially.
Yeah.
Because it got to a point where my business was growing exponentially.
So when you quit, you were booked though.
I was booked.
Okay.
Like there was basically no days off. Like
Yeah.
I was working Monday through Monday, or I guess it's Sunday through Sunday. But yeah, I was.
The fact that Sunday is officially the first day of the
Right.
week makes no sense. No one ever thinks that. Anyway.
Yeah, so I was working my job 9 to 5, and then I would come home and deal with clients and shoot engagement sessions after work, and then shoot weddings on the weekend. So it got to a point where I'm like, you know what? My business is growing. I'm going to quit my job and go full steam ahead. But I did have a plan. I made sure that everything was set in order before I quit my job. There was no way I was just going to quit.
Yeah.
cold turkey and go into starting a business, because at least for me, I wanted to feel financially secure, have enough money saved just in case my business failed.
Have
And
you
then,
have you ever heard, like, I'm trying to think of the kind of people that say this, but they're like, what's the term, like, burn the ships,
burn the ships.
which is basically like
Okay.
jumping. It's like you land. You know. I'm trying to remember what the analogy is. It's an explorer. They found a new land, and to motivate his men, he burnt the ship, so there was no plan B.
Oh.
We had to push on.
Okay.
And I hear people talk about it all the time, like, if you really want to be successful, like, don't get a plan B. It's plan A or bust, which I think is the dumbest advice.
I agree.
Like,
Yeah.
don't do that. That is not a smart thing. You know,
Yeah.
like, make sure you're financially secure.
And I loved how Simon, at the end of telling us his story, said the piece of advice he would give people is, if you're doing this for money, this could be a lucrative thing. This could be something that, works out for you, but that shouldn't be your main objective. And my one piece of advice is your network is everything.
Yes, 100%.
That, I believe, is so paramount in any type of business that you start, any type of field you're in, because Simon and I weren't friends prior to photography. We met in this industry.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even by working with each other. It was more so just through just mutual friends.
Mutual friends. And then,
Yeah.
like, it's social media. I have such a love-hate relationship with social media because I hate it because, one, I can't keep up with it. And two, it's just like it gets us so much business that
Simon, what's a TikTok?
I like watching TikTok. I've never
The TikTok.
TikTok. I like watching the TikTok. But also, it can be a toxic place. It can be people put so much stake in it sometimes that it's like, hey, he unfriended me. Okay, is that
right?
But on the upside, like, I've made so many, like, friends that I would consider close friends at this point that we didn't meet for the first time in real life. Perfect example of that is, if anyone wants to follow a really great YouTube channel, his name is Matt Day. If you just search for Matt Day,
Yeah, I know that is.
he and I I guess I found his channel right. It must have been right after he started, and I guess it was probably 2014.
Okay.
And I remember watching a couple of his videos. It was just stuff that I couldn't find anywhere else, and he was the only one talking about it. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then we followed each other on Instagram. I don't even remember how, but, like, I DM'd something that I don't think it even had to do with photography.
Yeah.
And he just, like, got back to me. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then I guess just over the years we had just talked, and generally it was never about, like, we'd comment little things about photography stuff, but, like, the actual conversations we had were not about photography at all, just much more life and kids and family and stuff. And he had never been to Philly before, but Maggie and I taught on Saturday. He taught at the same camera show on Sunday.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, man, you're going to be in Philly? Like, let's hang.
Lingo?
And he's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So, like, we finally, like, hung out on Sunday.
Nice.
And he gave a great talk. And it was just really cool meeting him. And it felt like, and I think this is a combination of, he's one of those people on YouTube that really is himself. He puts himself. So he puts himself out there. But I think it was a combination of, we've, like, kind of known each other for so long.
Yeah.
But you also see him, that kind of stuff for a while. So, like, we hung out. It was, like, not like we had just met for the first time. It was just like, all right, what are we doing? We chilling? Okay, cool.
So,
but
man.
Yeah, but I think, like, the same thing. I think you and I became friends, like, on Instagram at first.
Yeah.
And then I don't even remember the first time we actually, like, it might have been me, like, emergency second shooting for one of your associates or something like that.
Maybe. I can't remember the first time we may have shook hands in person, but again, like you said, it was either through social media or through some type of friend or mutual friend. And that's just to say that don't be scared to reach out to people. Don't be scared to go to events, to just show your face and connect and network with
There's
people.
always going to be some sort of competition in the creative space.
Oh, absolutely.
But in the same sense, we have such a cool network of photographers in Philadelphia. And I now have realized that I have a network of really close friends who are all wedding photographers.
Yeah, man. It's a cool network to have.
But also I realized, this past weekend at this workshop, like, I have a pretty good network of completely, like, non-wedding industry photographers now. And I've been having a really good time interacting with them too. Because I can always learn something from people, which is why I still second shoot, even though, we're doing our own weddings most of the year. I just like learning from other people and see how they do stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's all like your network is everything. You're totally right.
So in this podcast, we have decided that we're going to talk to you guys about different topics. Like I mentioned before, we're going to have guests. But at the end of our segments, we're going to do something called the hot button topic.
We're going to try to keep it sort of current, I guess you could call it. Some of them will be more broad, but like...
We'll make it spicy, but we'll keep it, you know.
I mean, I think it's more so like...
Keep it PG.
Stuff that people... I kind of consider it like stuff we're all kind of thinking, but no one wants to say out loud.
Say it out loud,
So
right.
instead of just saying it out loud, we're going to like actually like record ourselves saying it so it could be played back ad nauseum for anyone who has a problem with it.
So what I think we'll do moving forward is I will think of the hot button topic for the week, and I won't tell you until the actual day of the episode.
Why? Because I have hotter takes than you?
You might.
You can say it.
But I think it's going to be good where you don't know what I'm going to say beforehand, so then that way
No,
I shock you.
So I think that's good because
Right?
I wouldn't say I'm jaded as far as weddings go because I love weddings, but I'm very jaded with sort of the industry, I think.
Yeah.
In the sense that I see some stuff happen, I'm like, really? we're doing that? We're really doing that? Yeah.
For this first episode, we both know what the hot button topic is, but moving forward, we're not going to
Okay, I love it.
So, Simon, the hot button topic for this week is vendors that drink at weddings.
Can you guess which one of us came up with this?
So I personally, I'm going to give you a quick take on this because I think it's not as big of a deal as people may make it. So I think it's okay to have a drink or two at a wedding. Would you agree or disagree?
I have a whole take on this. So yes, I would agree, but there's like caveats to that very much.
Right. And what I like to do is towards the end of the night, I like to take a shot with all of my couples. Totally. So it's tequila, whiskey, rum. I go to the bar, I get a quick shot, I hand it to them. And
Which I'm surprised. Do you have like a trick to getting shots at weddings? Because a lot of the times they won't give you shots.
That's a good question.
Here's the trick. Ready? Order
Right.
something on the rocks with an extra glass.
Oh, wait. Yes, on the rocks. That actually does work.
Yeah. You get on the rocks, get an extra glass, and just...
All my couples actually, well, I won't say all, but majority of them that I do take a shot with, you should see their face as I'm approaching them with shots. They're like, Aunt, really? Really? And then we take the shot, and it's always a good way to celebrate the wedding. Yeah. What's your take?
So I'm gonna preface this all with like Magda and I definitely drink at weddings.
Okay.
However, there's two parts to this. Okay. And the number one part that is important is that if you know that you cannot consume alcohol,
a lightweight.
Or just like, I know some people who aren't lightweights, but they just like, once they start drinking, they're like, oh, it's party time now. Which is true.
Photographers?
No.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
No. So like, I know people who won't do it because like, if I have a drink, like, there's no way I'm like finishing the night.
I can't drive home.
I can't drive home, or I'll get exhausted. Like,
yeah.
I get all of those things. It's kind of like me and like weed. Like I can't smoke and do anything. And I have friends who are like, let's smoke and go do something. And I go, why?
And granted, we don't condone drinking and driving, of course.
No.
But having a drink and then waiting it out a little bit before you go home, I think that's the best way.
So that's number one. Like, you can drink at a wedding, but can you? You don't. Anything that will prevent you from doing your job to your best of your ability, like, no, you're not going to do that. You're a professional. That being said, my drinking tolerance is very, very high. And that's partially because I went to Penn State, and that speaks for itself, I think. And two, because, for about 8 years before I did this, I played drums in a party band in bars and clubs. Like, I had to follow a click track while people are like literally pouring shots of Jameson in my mouth. Yeah. Which was awesome. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, so I know that like I can have a few drinks and it won't really affect me. But I think
don't you think though there are people that don't have such a high tolerance.
Oh, 100%. And I think
Yeah.
if you know that about yourself, absolutely don't drink at a wedding.
But you're saying it's okay too.
Well, so the next part of that is a part that's almost as big for me is that if you can't read a room, also don't attempt it. So, and what I say is that, how many times do you go to groom prep and the best man or the groom offers you a drink?
Probably 85% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
The thing that you have to be able to read, because here's the sort of the scenarios I see a groom offering a drink in. Number one, it's like he wants you to drink with him. Either it's going to put him at ease, or he's just like, yeah, have fun with us. And hold on, in that case, totally.
I might disagree on you this one.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
But there's another case where he's offering you a drink to be polite.
True.
And
true.
Sometimes if he offers you a drink to be polite, and you're like, yeah, you get that. You see that look of like, oh, really?
But what if it's like, because they like to start early. What if it's like 10:30 in the morning?
Can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
This guy's crazy.
Listen, I am telling you, my tolerance is stupid high.
To me,
But
no,
be
yeah.
smart,
Right.
But
I see what you're saying though. Like I agree. It might be unpolite to be like, nah, I don't want to drink.
oh, I'm not saying that. I'm like,
Okay,
if you don't want to
okay.
drink, say no. Like obviously, or say, or
I'll drink with you later.
yeah, totally.
Okay. That's what I
But-
do.
Now I'm sounding like I just get trashed at weddings. I do not get trashed at weddings. Like I will have a few drinks, but like I think everything is about reading the room. If you think
moderation, too.
and our couples, with the exception of a couple, they are like, I don't want to say forcing me to the drink. They're like, at what point can you start drinking with us? And I know they're being sincere about it because we're pretty sort of open about our personalities. Like, even on our socials, we're like, hey, having a cocktail, like whatever.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this though. I feel as if it's cool to say for, let's say, a local Philly wedding, but like when you get into that luxury market where you are dressed in a tux, you're to the T, you're working with $1 million wedding, and you have other high profile guests there, and they see you taking a drink at the end of the night. Do you think that's still okay, or does it not matter the environment?
I think it's, again, reading the room. I'm not basing that on like a level of luxury, a level of price point.
Okay.
I've definitely been to those weddings where you feel much more like a vendor, which honestly I don't like.
I agree.
But we've done them. And in that case, you're a professional. You are not there to be a part of it. You're there to capture it, which
I agree.
are not my favorite weddings to do, to be honest with you. Just because I don't feel like I have the same connection with the couple that I do. But we've only done a very few of those. But I've also done those insane expensive weddings where hey, I have a special bottle of something. Like, so we did one this past year where the groom, shout out Kevin, what's up, Kevin? We had been talking about bourbon at their engagement shoot.
Okay.
And the reception comes along and he goes, hey man, I know you said you like Angel's Envy. There's an open bottle down in the groomsmen's suite with a couple glasses. Like, help yourself.
Yeah.
As the night goes, I was like,
well, thank you.
okay,
Appreciate it.
And and that's twofold. One, it wasn't in front of guests. It was just like, hey, let's go have a drink together.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But yeah, I think I've heard a lot of this was a topic in some Facebook groups that I'm part of, and it's just like, that is so unprofessional and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
right.
Well, like, if you get drunk and turn into like a mess, absolutely. But like,
I agree. And also, it could also depend on the type of couple. You know what I mean?
Oh, always. 100%. Yeah.
You can have a couple that's more shy, more laid back, and you might feel uncomfortable having a drink.
Right.
So in that case, I understand. So
this is not like, have a drink at every wedding. This is like,
read the room, like
the room.
Simon said. I agree.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's the whole thing. And, the long and the short of it is that Magda and I are always ourselves with our couples.
Yeah.
And ourselves we like to have fun and party with you guys. And like, that's always been our vibe, and it's going to stay our vibe.
Same.
Yeah.
Hey, my guy, this was fun.
Hey, man.
First episode.
We did it.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully. We got to look at it. Hopefully this recorded.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned. We're going to try to do this, what do you think, once a week?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There might be some delay in busy wedding season, or we're just going
Right.
to look disheveled on here. But
Right. So, guys, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment if you enjoyed it. Share it to whoever you'd like. And stay tuned for episode 2.
Cool.
All right.
Theme song.
Bring the giants out, bring the giants out, bring the giants out, bring the giants out.